You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Learn more at wearelibertarians.com. Hey everybody, before we get started, this is Chris Spangle, and I want to tell you about our sponsor for this episode. It is the great 812 Farms, located in Bartholomew County, Indiana. That is Columbus, Indiana, home of Vice President Mike Pence, but please don't hold that against our friends at 812 Farms. They are a 2-acre commercial hop farm providing breweries and home brewers with fresh hops, whole cone hops, and hop pellets. They're getting ready to open a 250-seat wedding venue right on the farm. It's a beautiful location. You guys have to go check it out. They just acquired a complete brewing system to open up their own restaurant and brewery, and they're going to be Indiana's first destination brewery, located in beautiful Bartholomew County. And they have ingredients for restaurants, and everything in their restaurant and brewery will be grown on-site or within 30-mile radius. So they're striving to really be locally grown. It's going to be a great destination. So if you're thinking about getting married and you're in the Indiana area, you know, it's worth the trip to check them out. They're great supporters of the show, great friends of ours, and we hope that you will be a great friend to them. And if you're not in the area, please go like their Facebook page. It is 812 Farms, all spelled out, all the letters, not the numbers. So please, thank them for being a sponsor of We Are Libertarians. We are supported by listeners like you. Donate per month or make a one-time donation through PayPal or Patreon at wearelibertarians.com. Hey everybody, it's Chris Spangle. I want to tell you about a new sponsor of We Are Libertarians, and it is martinarmory.com. They're founded with a simple goal to make buying a gun simple and affordable. Instead of carrying thousands of different guns, Martin Armory only carries 25. This allows them to focus on providing the most popular guns on the market at insanely cheap prices. And it gets even better. For a limited time, Martin Armory is offering We Are Libertarians listeners free shipping. Simply go to martinarmory.com, pick an awesome gun, and enter the promo code We Are Libertarians. Again, that's martinarmory.com, and enter the promo code We Are Libertarians. I want to say thank you to them for being a supporter of the program. Please go check out their website, martinarmory.com. Just a guy starting a business to revolutionize the gun industry, chasing his dream, and we're so proud that he is helping partner with us to chase ours. So please, do us a favor, go support the newest sponsor of We Are Libertarians, martinarmory.com. Welcome to a very special episode of We Are Libertarians. It's a reunion episode here on the We Are Libertarians Network. Please be sure to rate and review us on iTunes. I have to say, we have 124 reviews. 123 of them are 5-star positives, and the most recent one was a 1-star negative review, and that's all I can think about. So please, I implore you, We Are Libertarians Universe, to excise my vengeance.
Dilute out the stupid people.
Exactly right.
Those
Please.
that are wrong.
Somebody gave you 1 star?
1-star review. It's happened before. So this is We Are Libertarians, where we talk politics and policy. It's National Review meets Mad Magazine. All of the irreverence modern politics deserves. So this is a very special episode. Greg Lenz, how are you?
Doing well, buddy. I'm excited about this whole situation.
Now, this is a day that Greg has been asking for a very long time, but I said no. Only one way can this day happen. 2 things must happen. First, Tad of Tad Talks, the Tad Talk podcast,
Suburban Cowboy, Tad Western.
1,000 listeners. That's 1/8 of our audience, which is very strong. Tad has over 1,000 listeners, which is huge. So you need to go check that out and listen to Tad Talk. But I said, listen, I need Tad Western to mediate the peace between Rob Kendall and I. And the second thing that must happen is Rob Kendall must apologize.
Well, you said that he offended the listeners, and the listeners are you.
It's not about me, Rob Kendall. It's not about me. It's about our listeners. Because as you know, here in We Are Libertarians land, Dear Leader is the listeners, and the listeners are Dear Leader.
You're doing this for yourself?
We're one of the... Yeah, absolutely. No.
There is no self. It's the listeners.
I'm doing this for the listeners. I've given you many opportunities to apologize to the audience and to me. I offered up the stage at We Are Libertarians Live. Nary a word from you. I offered generously to come to your wedding and stand before you and all of your friends and family before the vows
And here you apologize to me.
Even stand in for the bride.
No.
Which is legal in Indiana.
It is, right.
Mike Pence left.
We're not going to get electrocuted, Rob. Just you and me. You have a beautiful hairless body. I saw that at the pool party the other day. You and Harry Price, of all people.
Yeah, you
Like
know
a
what? I'll
hairless
tell you, though,
kitten.
I know. I wanted to beat Harry in basketball, so I made him play me in the pool.
And you didn't win.
I beat him.
Oh, you did?
I crushed him.
Oh.
I got him in the pool. I got him my home court advantage. He said white people were aquatic, and he got mad. He got out of the pool.
It was unfair.
I know.
Well, the floaties were really slowing it down. But Rob Kendall, Tad negotiated a peace between Rob Kendall and I. So here we are. We are at the lovely Central Indiana Today studios, where Rob hosts his world-renowned radio show, where he has interviewed Donald Trump. He has interviewed Greg Lenz, and that's all you need to know.
And Chris Spangle.
Absolutely.
And don't you like how I did all this for you to get ready? I painted the walls. I moved the door.
There's
I put a window
whiteboards.
in.
The air conditioning is on.
I said, I've got to just get this ready for Spangle.
Yes.
Red carpet.
Yeah, I mean, you deserve a nice place to come when you're in Brownsburg.
I used to have one of those. Oh, that's too inside. Most of the listeners won't get that.
Oh, I do. That's hilarious. I thought it was further out on 74.
Yeah, it was. So technically Pittsburgh.
Just keep going.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Yeah.
Oh, you have?
Oh,
That's
you
right.
have, huh? Yeah, so...
Would you like to have some liberty?
Rob, is there anything that you'd like to say to me and to the audience of We Are Libertarians?
Well, I want to tell everybody that I was really inspired to get us all back together by I was watching a documentary on the Beatles and Paul and John about how there was that rumored the Beatles were going to get back together.
Yep.
And they just kept dragging it out.
Right.
And it never happened.
Right.
And then tragically John Lennon died. And I said, I don't want that to be us.
Of course.
I want us to get the band back together. I want us to continue to inspire your listeners. I guess that's you. For years, I've been led to believe there was this vast universe, but apparently we're just playing to you now.
No. I am the listeners, and they are me.
Indistinguishable.
We are one.
It's like water. How it can be ice, it can be water, or it can be a vapor.
The Trinity.
Yeah, the Holy Trinity.
You're like a real-life Jell-O.
Yes, anything you need. Jell-O pudding.
So,
No, the listeners have missed you, and they just have one thing that they want to hear, Rob.
well, Chris, I'm very sorry that you banned me from We Are Libertarians. I feel like your listeners deserve better. And so in order to give the listeners what they want, I'd like to say that I'm very sorry for any self-esteem issues you may have that have caused you to overreact.
Well, technically the listeners, because they're indistinguishable.
Yes, I'm sorry for anything that may have happened, and I just want us to move forward in the name of liberty.
Greg, I'm in a conundrum here.
You are.
Because he apologized.
Yes.
Which was the requirement, but it was very insulting.
I believe that's known as the grin fucking.
Yes. I don't generally have low self-esteem. There are days. No.
Are you suicidal? Only in the morning.
No, that's usually 9
That's
at
me
night.
too. Every
Yeah.
person who isn't that way. At 3:30 when you're getting up to prepare for Tony
Absolutely.
Katz fill in.
I'm working very hard.
A friend, by the way, you're working at WIBC. A friend who I work with heard you this morning and said that he was very impressed by you when I told him I was coming to do this tonight.
Is he prepared to offer me a high-paying full-time job somewhere?
He's not.
Okay. But tell him thank you.
But
I appreciate that.
He sends well wishes.
many,
you know-
many positive vibes which you can deposit at the vibe
At
store.
my local bank. Well, here's what I was thinking. Because Rob rhymes with Bob, so it could just become Tom and Rob and Tom.
They already that's the Japanese version.
And
With a Cubs hat, though.
and yes, the Cubs hat. And people might just think it was a misprint on the items, the digital items. Not that you would make a mistake.
No,
but
never.
then people would think Bob's back. They might,
It'd be like those Jordache Walmart shoes that were knockoff Jordans
Right.
when we were growing up.
right.
Oh, a Frolex.
Yeah, exactly.
Look, at the end of the day, you provide a tremendous service. I've missed the We Are Libertarian listeners. I've really missed Greg. And so
It's good to be back together.
And I'll tell you what, the pool party, it was just so wonderful. The pool party.
Did you
was-
have fun?
I had a blast.
Okay, so I thought it might have been overwhelming a little bit because it was madness.
You were off to yourself with the lovely Haley for most of the night.
Yes, I'm building a house / getting married, So I'm really becoming a Renaissance man. And Spangle, you've been married.
I've been married.
I don't think you built a house, though.
I did not build a house because I knew the
Thank
marriage
God
wasn't
you
going to. No, the marriage wasn't going to last. The only piece of property in our marriage
cats.
decree was the 2 cats.
And you got the one, but you cucked the new guy.
I have muffins.
Back.
I was really excited, though. I got to visit with Tad Western, the great Harry Price.
Tad Western's jihadist friend, though.
Yeah,
Hatchin.
well, there was this guy. He was very
Lebanese.
You know, I always loved the We Are Libertarians get-togethers because there's a lot of Seinfeld-esque characters, and I love these Seinfeld-esque characters. And I feel like I always walk away with something I can take with me that I said, that's interesting.
I'm glad I'm not that person. No, this pool party was the characters got a little out of control.
Were the cops called?
No, they circled at the last one. They circled around twice.
Right.
Haley and I made a minor wager as we were leaving on whether the cops would be called.
Yeah, it calmed down actually a decent amount once you left.
Well, it was my fault then.
Right.
Is that what I'm hearing?
No, it wasn't your fault. It was more that Jeremiah Morrill, Lion Jer, as we so lovingly call him, he got a little bit hog wild and had to be corralled and put down.
Very interesting. Because I told Haley as we were driving out there, I said, because I told Haley before we left.
You sprung it on her.
Well,
that
I was trying to get her to go because I wanted
to.
to see you guys.
Rob is going to be a terrible husband.
I knew that if I told her it was in Newcastle, Indiana, we would not get the ability to go. So I kept telling her, hey, honey, we don't have to go. We can go downtown instead, have a nice dinner. And she goes, no, it's fine. Okay, we'll go. And so then I said, right as we were about to leave, I said, okay, we'll need about an hour to get there. And there was this dropping of the bags in the hall, and the quick, as you've seen, being married,
Did it really?
The female turnaround. Where are we going? Beautiful Newcastle, Indiana.
You're going to love Henry County.
I said it's great.
So great.
Home of the Basketball Hall of Fame, and one of the Wright brothers was from there.
Right.
All you need to know, really. Why
both.
wouldn't you go there?
If someone told me, they said you're going to go to the home of the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame.
Especially since it's nearly Ohio, it would make sense that the Wright brothers were born there.
But you know women, and how did she get?
She was not thrilled with that. But what I told her, and see, we talked about this today on WIBC. What they'll do in the news story is they'll actually put the facts, but it's 20 paragraphs down.
Right.
And it takes you 7 minutes to get there so that they can cover themselves when they're accused of being fake news. Say, no, the facts are there. I said, but honey, Jeremiah's address was on the Facebook page invite. And I think her reaction was something to the effect of, you knew I wasn't reading that or something.
You fine printed her.
Yeah, I said, honey, it was there. I told you where we're going. You were invited. So
you knew it was $19.99 for the rest of your life every single month.
I really upped the charm on the drive out there.
She arrived and immediately got drunk.
She was
allegedly.
I think she felt as though that I might have not been forthcoming where the party was, but I knew
Hoodwinked.
This was going to be
listeners, you see what I'm dealing with.
The catalyst to get the band back together.
Of course.
The ends justifies the means.
That's right, because I didn't want us to be the Beatles.
and Spangle to die.
Right.
Now listen.
And then the rest of my life, I'm playing Hey Jude at an arena in honor of Spangle without a farewell.
Now listen, I will admit that Rob is Paul. He's much more well-liked than I am. I'm like John. People like me. They recognize my immense talent. But
the grand poobah.
I'm very polarizing amongst even my own friends. There's always disagreements. But let me tell you where you went wrong, Rob. You were trying to execute what we'll call a joke.
Air quotes. He's Brad. What was the Farley character? Bradford Browning?
Yeah.
And I had kind of gently said, hey, back off me a little bit. Because you have to understand, the world of Chris Spangle is full of people joking with me and picking on me.
Right.
And so what I keep up with probably between 40 and 60 people a week. And I'd say more than half of those people bust my balls. Would you say that's fair, Greg?
Absolutely, especially as the We Are Libertarians, the people you've allowed in.
Yes.
And to play a bigger role, how now feel they have license to, bust chops.
And some of them are very good at it, especially Jeff Vibbert.
That's an even different story.
You're very gentle with me, Greg. Always gentle.
Can I be the new Jeff Vibbert?
You're in.
Am I hired? Will I be on Bob and Tom?
No.
Will I be on Tom's show?
You are all over the media like Pat McAfee, so it kind of makes sense.
Could I go to Barstool?
There you go.
So you executed a particular joke about my work, which, listen, I love money and I love my job, and so they're very sensitive about jokes about where I work. And I was just like, hey, not for nothing, don't do that. And you did it a few more times, and I was just like, you know what? I've got to block him. I've got to. I wasn't even mad.
He defriended me.
I had to defriend you. I was like, I have to go into self-protection mode.
It was excommunication.
But I feel that you were hurt by that.
No, I'm okay.
All right.
Because I had Lenz.
Right.
I stayed up to date on your
antics.
It's like anytime there's a breakup, you know,
Right.
you're
Well,
poking
you
around.
replaced him with Trevor,
Trevor
who's
Foudy.
the worst troll of any of us.
Yes.
Trevor stepped up and agreed to be my friend.
He sticks the knife right in.
He agreed to be your friend.
He filled out an application.
There was extensive negotiations between Trevor and I.
here's how I looked at it, because Lenz and Trevor and I had a lot of nice interactions in a group chat.
Yes.
And it's sort of like when Van Halen went with Sammy Hagar,
Right.
David Lee Roth left. It was great. We love Trevor. We'd gladly go on tour with Trevor again. It's just not David Lee Roth.
Right. The apology thing, though, was never about you, because I never really cared about an apology. It just drove Jeremiah Morrill specifically crazy.
You have no idea how much fun it was watching him spin himself into a tizzy over this.
He really thought this was a real thing?
Yeah.
It kept him up.
Like, I had told Greg, I was like, make sure Rob knows I'm not actually mad at him, but I want everybody else to think I'm mad at him. And then when I would say the apology thing on a podcast, invariably one of the co-hosts would go, "Oh my God, you're such a dick."
Well, then the apology thing got legs of its own, and so anyone that did the slightest offense, a public apology was demanded.
We made poor Aaron Ewert come up and apologize
at the live event.
This was, and I know at several points Jeremiah actually said, because he's such a great guy.
Wonderful man.
Good friend.
Said, I think you've taken this joke far enough. I think it's time
He
to
said that to you?
Yeah. On public forums.
Because he knew I was like, this is irritating me. But he also said that to me about the apology thing. He's like, can't we all just get along? I'm like, listen, Rob and I are going to fight. And then in a few months, we'll get back together. It will be a triumphant welcome return to We Are Libertarians.
Yeah, it's great.
We will give him his 22nd appearance, so he has 2 more than Bittner.
Yes, and hopefully many more.
Yes.
Never Bittner.
Then Bittner.
And now you can't even let Bittner have your car.
No.
Is that not unbelievable?
How unbelievable
No
is this?
shame.
Not even a bit.
Borrows Jeremiah Morrill's truck to move, allegedly.
Right.
Hits in his driveway a fire hydrant, backing out, gives it back to Jeremiah, doesn't fix it or pay to fix it, so Jeremiah has to park it next to a bush in his yard so you can't see the front end that's been ripped off. Then shows up to his damn the WAL summer party at Jeremiah's house in a brand new Nissan.
In between, they're taking a vacation to Seattle or somewhere.
I mean, if he only had the funds.
Now I get he's been through a lot. He has courageously fought diabetes.
That's true.
He looks great.
He looks great.
I loved him in Philadelphia.
Down 71 pounds. He's he's comforting himself through all of his hardship in the bosom of a young 20-year-old blonde.
And so I'm just very happy that this man has succeeded. But I will say, if you're going to ruin someone's car, your first requirement as a libertarian, what is it, the non-aggression pact?
Personal responsibility.
Right.
He was aggressive with Jeremiah's car.
Bittner literally used to teach the basics of libertarianism to
And there's
people.
no symbols. And not only that, then he's posing with the vehicle.
Yeah, fill out a selfie. Bittnerd, hashtag.
Yeah.
You know what
Bittner happens.
You know what this demands, Rob?
An apology.
An apology.
To
Lion Jer.
To
on
Jeremiah.
the air.
On the air.
Yeah.
Bittner needs...
On the Boss Hog of Liberty show.
This is decided.
Bittner's going to be blocked.
It is a decree by dear leader
A fatwa.
and diversity commandant Greg Lenz.
Yes.
And what do you want? What do you want your title to be?
Propaganda minister.
I'm just like Shady. I'm back. Shady's back.
Shady Rob Kendall.
You should rap.
Because, so many people tune in when I'm on the show.
Right.
Some we like, some we don't.
You outrage people.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful because
Usually
everybody
me.
needs a nemesis.
By the way, I did want to give a shout out to one of your loyal listeners and fans, Chris Lane.
The wonderful Chris
Chris
Lane.
Lane has been so passionate about our long-standing feud that I want to thank Chris for his support. He stood behind me through this whole thing.
Well, that's a surprise to me.
He's been playing both sides, huh?
You know what this demands, Greg?
Apology.
An apology.
From Chris Lane.
I love Chris Lane. I love all the WAL listeners.
Could you please-
regular
could
listeners?
You realize that means you love him because they're inseparable.
Well, some of your part-time listeners I'm not big fans of, but I love all your normal big fan listeners, and I think it's just great. I think you guys, as I've always said, and Greg will point this out, even when you posted the very mean-spirited Broad Ripple Rob meme, which got quite a reaction.
That was very Trevor-esque.
It was, I understand, it got quite the reaction on social media.
What? What was it? It was a photo of you where you were bald,
Yes.
and basically saying, "Looking forward to several years from now when
Right.
Broad Ripple."
Oh yeah, I forgot you put that out publicly.
2024. Oh, yes.
Oh yes. And
So while I kept...
Oh boy, did Haley and you stay friends during all this?
Haley did not speak to me at the party.
Still?
Still, she's liked a few Instagrams, which I was happy about.
We haven't
because,
told her the feud was fake, so let's just keep it going.
All right, okay.
That's a bad precedent to start with your wife.
Honey, we're not going to Newcastle.
Yeah.
And,
That was smart.
She was like, Chris Spangle's going to be there. I'm going to have to be drunk. You know that.
I thought, I mean, granted, like, I understand because it's an intense experience. It's a lot of people you don't know who are not the most socially adept.
Right.
And so and yet they all know each other. They're all friends with each other. And it's every bit as much of a raucous as it is online when we get together.
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I'm glad you guys had a good time because it can be like drinking out of a fire hose upon
Jumping
first.
into pool off the
roof.
Yeah. Doing a Rey Mysterio style, landing on his back.
It appeared after I left, Morrill was forcing booze down people's throats.
He baptized Dear Leader with an entire bottle of water.
20 ounces of water on my head on Facebook Live to our Facebook group.
And I was telling Haley when we were driving to Newcastle, as she was very angry, I was really throwing a lot of things at the wall to see what would stick. I told her, I said, you're going to like this because Jeremiah Morrill is a very well-respected figure in Henry County.
Who he invites to these things.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I said, you're going to be amongst royalty in Henry
He's a
County.
Kennedy out there.
I said, you are like in the protected zone. I said, think about it. You know royalty in Hendricks County, me.
Yep.
You know royalty of Indianapolis, Greg Lenz and Chris Spangle.
That's right.
And now we know royalty of Henry County.
The 70 strip.
Right.
Yeah.
Corridor, the Internet I-70 corridor.
You just need to get somebody in ammo and you're covered.
That also did not work. It did not. It did not.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was so impressed that you pulled that off, and she was in a happy mood. Like, she, I mean, I would have needed alcohol too, given it was my first experience, but she did very well, and I hope that it just wasn't too much for her,
I'm
and she'll come
learning
back.
how to be a husband because I love my dear future wife so much.
I worry about you because you are a very sweet boyfriend, a very sweet fiance.
Yes.
You're always giving her a lot of gifts.
Yes.
You realize that you can never stop doing that, right?
Well, that's okay because Haley, the wonderful thing about Haley is she loves flowers. And Walmart has a very nice section of affordable flowers.
All right.
You're used to that.
You work in radio, you should get a flower sponsorship.
Yeah, I've been making pittance my whole life for bad things I've done. So,
Yes.
I mean, just being able to be nice to the wonderful Haley is no big deal.
All right, good, because you stop that, and then 5 years down the road,
It's not like it used to be with you.
this is not an accurate impression of Haley. This is my exaggeration of a woman.
Yeah.
So I'm not offending Haley.
A theoretical woman.
It's not like it used to be. It used to be so sweet to me, and this isn't working.
Next thing you know, you're supposed to be getting the reservation at a restaurant for 12 people, and you just decide to walk, and they all show up and realize you're not there, and nor is the reservation.
And aren't you at home podcasting while people are moving their stuff out of your
These
facility?
may or may not be accurate stories.
Based on true events.
The following events do not represent.
I'm sorry, honey. I don't care that you're moving out. There's this 20-year-old that needs help with her tumbler.
But no, I'm glad the band is back together. I always have continued to listen to We Are Libertarians.
So you know about the demands for public apology.
Oh, yes.
There's
I've-
no way he didn't hear about that.
Well, I mean, even through the grapevine, but I didn't know if you heard
Look,
first
while
person.
Spangle chose to be immature and mock me publicly, I remained a loyal friend to the program.
Listen. You knew the consequences.
Look.
You knew the consequences.
Look.
You were every time you brought my name up, you know what happens.
I know about your rock meme to know my role and shut my mouth.
I'm proud of that one.
I
You posted
know-
that too?
Oh yeah.
Oh, wow.
I went
know,
hard.
You went
Because-
hard in the paint.
Because you have to, Greg, you taught me this. You either have to be a decent person or you have to be a monster.
Yeah.
That's true, but I treat people in my network as decently as I can. Outside my network, all gloves are off.
Here's how I looked at the Broad Ripple Rob meme, though. I will still have my hair when that happens.
What do you mean?
But
Shh, don't elaborate.
no. If that when I'm that age, 2024
Sure,
is what
sure.
I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
Not
no,
that situation.
No. I will still have my hair.
Brother
then.
Rob is dead.
But I will be very happy, and there will be a part of Broad Ripple Rob legacy that will live on forever in the halls of Kilroy's, in the halls of Brothers, in the now defunct
In the alley behind.
The Alley Cat.
the now defunct Chumley's, which
Oh,
apparently
yeah.
is out of the new one is out of
Yeah,
business.
it's a new tap. Yeah, so it's like a district tap, the tap room.
I think that one went out too.
Yeah, that went out too. But I mean,
So
Chumley's lasted a while, but I was banned.
you were banned from Chumley's too.
Played Duck Duck Goose, the goose part.
On a certain posterior.
Run along, hun.
Look, 20 years, or more than that, some 25 years from now, I'll be able to take my kids out to Broad Ripple and say,
That's where I slept in my car after being out till 4 a.m. when I met your mother.
And, some kids take their parents take their kids back to the Little League fields where they play.
You're taking them to Broad Ripple.
Golf courses that they grew up on. I will take my kids back to Kilroy's and say, this is where I became of age, right here.
Now it's my turn to apologize. I recognize that was a little bit too savage, and I knew what I was doing. I was trying to get a rise out of you, and I apologize. And I apologize to Haley if she was upset by that too.
Oh no, she thought it was funny.
All right, okay. It was.
What'd she think of that Snapchat?
What? All right. Why do you have to bring up
totally
old
kidding.
mistakes?
I'm kidding.
It was a mistake. So Spangle sent a picture of his genitalia
Not
to
mine. It was a pair of balls with a dick, and on that was some funny sunglasses. And I was sending it to Jeff Vibert, and it went to Haley.
How do you make that mistake? Like I could see, like if I meant it to send it to Hal, or I meant to send it to Heather, even. Or...
I don't have that many friends, Rob. You know why?
It was early on in the Snapchat era, so not a lot of people were on it.
Yeah, I got sent an Aaron Snapchat the other day from somebody that did not want to send me a Snapchat.
It's very well. No, I really appreciate that. I was never offended. I like to refer to it as a work shoot, which is what we call it in pro wrestling. And just like with Bret Hart and Vince McMahon and the Montreal Screwjob, we got everybody going.
Donald Trump and Vince McMahon, yes. Our president.
Our president, Stone Cold Stunner.
Yes, and I'm very glad to be back in the good graces of the listeners, and I look.
You got some work to do on but they love you. They love to hate you.
No. Rob has apologized. He has absolved of all past crimes. He is now starting with a clean slate.
General pardon.
Pardon.
Because there's great things going on for you over at
like Scooter Libby, your clemency.
Thank you.
What is that word?
Scooter Libby? Yep. Oh, clemency. You're granting Rob clemency?
I've commuted your sentence.
You have been pardoned.
Thank you.
You should really just pat him on the head.
That's so great, because I know there's great things going on in your professional career, and there's great things going on in my professional career. Next year, we're talking about teaming up at the track next year.
Are you?
Absolutely.
That would be good.
We're going to merge the mega radio corporations together, like Captain Planet, when everybody put their rings in the air.
You guys with Jeremiah Morrill doing a race show?
Maybe.
Because he is like Dustin Hoffman and Rain Man when it comes to the race.
And how about Greg? Greg's very successful in his private sector
I don't know
practice.
I don't know the race.
I don't either.
Oh, you don't know the race history?
No.
Oh, okay.
But I feel like I could be that crazy Seinfeld-esque character.
We could play golf while that was going on.
There you go.
So here's the thing about the group of people. I was thinking about this the other day. Just the incredible little network of people that I traffic in. Specifically, between we're good friends with Jeff and Caitlin at the Jeff Vibert podcast.
He's a big celebrity now.
Yeah, I know he's a huge celebrity now. We're good friends with C-list celebrity in Indianapolis named Rob Kendall over there at the big news talk station. Really, the only news talk station.
Really,
that other one's basically CB radio. There's us.
They just switched to ham.
There's us, and then there's the entities that we work for. Those are all major entities, and the friends that brings about. Like, we got a nice little enclave of
talent and interesting characters.
Yeah. So, not to mention our We Are Libertarians friends in Lions of Liberty, the Johnny Rocket Launchpad, who I'll be on. I think that debuts tonight.
Does it come out tonight?
So I'll be on the Johnny Rocket Launchpad. Lions of Liberty, I'll be on Thursday night with those guys. Leading Liberty, I'll be on with Jen Gray this week.
You're just like a Charles Krauthammer of libertarian.
Well, dear leader,
podcast.
They're finally recognizing that he is the central planner that it's been lacking for years.
I've bitched and moaned until I finally gotten my due.
You're going on Jen Gray's show?
Yeah.
Huh.
Shut up. Huh. And then
did you record it? Like, was it a live recording?
It'll be Thursday.
Oh, it hasn't happened yet.
Hasn't happened yet.
Oh, so that's why you couldn't record Thursday night.
That and Lions of Liberty. That's right after that. So, fuck off.
I'm just busting your chops.
Go Google Jen Gray and you'll see why I'm doing our podcast. She's delightful.
She's very nice. Very sweet lady.
So, all right. Well, we're going to talk with Rob on his show on Central Indiana Today, which you can find on SoundCloud. Do you have a website address or anything? Or just
search Central Indiana Today. You can also find it at wirz.org, but they're all listed right there on SoundCloud.
All right.
Thanks to you guys.
Under the show and then through SoundCloud.
I'm posting it right now.
You got to get it on an RSS feed. We got to get you on iTunes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gotta
you
get
really
you on
do need to
iTunes.
get on iTunes.
I'm on iTunes.
Oh, you already? That's right. You are on iTunes.
All right. Good. And
I'm linked up.
Yep.
Rob, RobKendall.
That's right.
So check him out.
That's right, because it's the headshot. It's your headshot from your
Town council
run.
Yeah, when I had more hair.
Now imagine.
Well, I just thought it was the very Republican, parted on the side across the forehead.
It's the only time I ever did my hair.
The front swipe.
Now imagine if that were all bald and that was the Broad Ripple Rob meme that says Broad Ripple Rob.
I can't believe you posted that.
Returns 2024.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see where we're at in 2024.
Oh, probably still doing this. But
do you
with
think
more
that,
money?
Who do you think it will be that will be behind Donald Trump? Who will be our president? Because I'd have never bet that it would have been Donald Trump now.
I don't think that it. I think it'll have to be a Democrat.
Do you
right?
think? Do you think Mike Pence will be electrocuting the gays?
I mean, it's a very strong possibility.
I hope we still are friends with Seth.
I do want to, before we go, Rob, I want to ask you about you were the Trump supporter.
Yes.
Nobody loved and supported Donald Trump. You can go back in the We Are Libertarians feed and listen to Rob's interview with Donald Trump. Interview is a strong word.
Oh no, it was fanboy. It was professional fandom.
Now, Rob, how do you feel about the Donald Trump administration at this point?
I feel really great. I'm posing for this picture here for
No,
you.
it's a video.
Oh, okay, great. I'm in real time here, so in case
Right.
I say something that you can use against me.
Absolutely.
Okay, I see how it works.
This is called leverage.
Yes, well, let me look into that camera and tell you how I feel about the God
it's
Emperor Donald J. Trump.
Only 10 seconds per Snapchat.
okay.
So, how do you feel about that? Are you tired of winning yet?
First of all, let me say that on the Marlon Stutzman for U.S. Senate campaign, they adopted the name God Emperor in honor of Greg Lenz for Donald Trump.
He is the God. We may not have elections in 2024. It may just be
I'm very
God Emperor Trump's third term.
I think Trump has done a great job. He did appoint a constitutionalist to the Supreme Court.
Best Supreme Court selection since Antonin Scalia.
I think even Spangle. I think you've even said that you're pretty okay
100% big fan of that. I loved that a guy who wrote for Cato at one point is on the Supreme Court.
Privatization of the FAA.
That's what it was all about for me. Everything else is gravy. We've got a fifth constitutionalist on the
Supremes.
Supreme Court. I think he's finding out that you can't wave a magic wand, and there's a lot of Republicans that are going to have to go back.
A lot of the House Republicans just need to grow a set of
Yeah, absolutely.
huevos.
Yeah, but I'm very I'm very happy. I would give him an A- so far. An A+ would be if we had gotten Obamacare repeal done. Tax reform done.
Those are going to be.
That's going to be tough.
Oh my
Right,
God!
So you're giving Trump an A- so far.
I'm giving him an A-.
All right, I feel like that's a D in Rob speak.
No, it's look, as Lenz and I talked about before you got here, sometimes I think the comedy should have probably ended at the campaign. I find the London mayor stuff highly entertaining, but at the end of the day, I stop and pause and say, is that really good for diplomacy?
Does that increase the likelihood of a rogue terrorist act or decrease the likelihood?
Putting out McCain's, saying McCain, I like people don't get captured, or
That's fun. That's just
Lindsey
funny.
Graham's phone number.
That's funny.
Ted Cruz's dad shot JFK.
That's maybe true.
I love all that. That's great. I'm okay with that.
I don't know.
However,
Yeah, it's different when you're president.
yeah, maybe we shouldn't be challenging the London mayor to an IQ test. Still funny. I still go home and laugh at it, read the tweets, whatever, and think that's hilarious. But maybe when
He was valedictorian at Penn.
we're trying to stamp out our put our foot on international terrorism, we may need the Brits to be a little bit more accommodating and just say we're with you in your time of need.
Right. Not, listen, you dumb Muslim.
He didn't say that.
He said that basically.
No, he didn't say it
What do you think
first.
is inferred by let's take an IQ test? And then tweeting his way into the guitar, which we'll talk tomorrow.
The guitar situation?
Yeah,
Cutter?
like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, yeah.
But then on the other hand, I find like him elbowing his way to the front of the NATO photo. I do find that hilarious.
He did really well on his foreign overseas trip.
Look, the only thing I would say about Trump is I think, and Lenz probably feels kind of the same way, I kind of thought once he became president, he'd take the foot off the gas a little bit, would be a little bit more businessman Donald Trump.
I don't think he can because of the press situation.
Yeah, and so like I said, Supreme Court, he did his job. Anything else to me is great.
He gets tax reform and healthcare reform through and done and signed. It will have been an A, in my opinion, for what is accomplishable.
Yeah.
It's really for the rest of the republic.
And
this is about as good as it's going to get.
And like the president, President Obama only got one major thing done.
Yeah.
In his first term. And so if he's able to get 3, if he's able to get corporate tax reform, comprehensive reform done on taxation and healthcare in the form of a gradual, drawdown and repeal to Obamacare, he will have succeeded from the libertarian ideas that he does hold, or where there's common ground. It will have been a huge, huge win. And then as long as we're not in a war and we're continuing to draw down, I support it.
I have to have our final question for Rob Kendall before we get to his interview with us.
And I hate to do this, but I do have a hard time limit too. So
okay.
I do have to take opposite.
This is it. Yeah. So, Russia.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on the Trump-Russian quote-unquote scandal?
So my whole thing is, in the world we live in today, wouldn't we rather deal with people who wear uniforms? Like, we're fighting a crazy enemy that has no boundaries. They don't identify themselves. World War II was tough, but you knew who the Germans were.
Right.
You knew who the Italians were. You knew what you were dealing with. If you saw somebody in the forest, if they had the Nazi uniform on, sorry, Greg, we were shooting to
Not
kill.
sure what that means.
You're shooting to kill. Here you're dealing with an enemy that you have no idea who they are. You need Russia to help in many capacities, whether it's North Korea or whoever. Nobody doubts the Russians are bad guys, but we deal with a lot of bad guys.
Sure.
So let's try to get along with a major partner in terms of oil, in terms of energy, in terms of terrorism. I like the fact that Russia might say, let's get along with the United States, and just always, what is it Reagan said? Trust but verify.
Sure.
We know you're trying to hack our election system. We know you're bad
As
guys.
we are yours.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So I'm not under any illusion that Putin is a good guy, but I'd rather deal with, it's just like I look at this with Syria, and I think we learned this in the Iraq War. Was Hussein an awful guy? Yeah, but he wore a uniform.
And only after he was called our most important strategic regional ally by Donald Rumsfeld.
So my whole thing is, anytime you can deal in air quotes with someone who wears a uniform and identify them and know that their survival is important to them, I prefer to deal with that person versus someone who doesn't care if they live or die.
So do you feel that there is some level of corruption between the Trump administration and the Russians to get him elected?
No, there's nothing. As Connie Lawson said and Todd Rokita said on my show, you cannot hack the U.S. election system.
Right.
And every administration, incoming administration running for public office, of course you would talk to various allies, various strategic partners. And look, we've got the former president telling the head of Russia at the time, the acting head of Russia, just give me a little time to get reelected, and then I'll have more flexibility to give you what you want.
It'll be my last election.
Could anything be more in collusion than that?
It's a good point.
So I'm not under any illusions that Russia and the United States are going to hold hands. By the way, I love The Americans. It's one of my favorite shows. The Americans, great show on
Kerry
Fox
Russell?
FX. Yes, and so I'm not under any illusions that Putin's a good guy, but I would rather deal with Russia than ISIS.
Do you, Connie Lawson is the state Secretary of State who manages elections. Todd Rokita, former Secretary of State, and
You
also
like Rokita?
I love Rokita. I think he's a great guy, a friend of mine. He's a congressman from Indiana now. Would you mind if I edited the relevant portions of those interviews and put them at the end of this too?
Because I think use them.
I think that'd be really interesting to hear their perspective. Two people who have run elections in a state like Indiana, to hear their perspective. Both Republicans, but I think you might find it interesting.
Please use.
Well, the NSA document came out yesterday by The Intercept, the release from the leak, and it talked about they were able to get intrusion through a link, basically a Google employee clicking on a link that was doing a service provider for the United States government.
But if you look at what they could have done, all they could have done is change your address. Yes, they couldn't vote for you.
Right. So. And we already have Chicago, Illinois Democrats that change addresses and even dig up graves. So I'm not that worried about Russian address changes.
All right, very good. Thank you so much for coming on, Rob. You're a scholar and a gentleman. Thank you for apologizing to both me and the audience.
Well, you deserve the nicest things in life, Chris,
and
I'm very glad.
And I apologize to you, and we can consider this feud
squashed,
prima nocta. And so, final.
There might be a slight issue with that one.
No, I declare prima nocta. All right, final thoughts, Greg Lenz.
No, but it's good to have the band back together, and we will do more episodes so that Rob can continue to distance his lead on Bittner.
Yes. All right, thank you so much. What you're now going to hear is the golden pipes of Rob Kendall and Greg Lenz talking about ISIS, and then I will join once traffic cleared up, and then we'll
You violated a bunch of laws.
hear about state elections. So thank you so much for joining on this episode of We Are Libertarians. We will see you next time.
The Johnny Rocket Launchpad is Liberty. Each week we strive to bring you the best guests in talk radio. The Johnny Rocket Launchpad delivers weekly interviews of noteworthy politicians, experts, and activists. The Johnny Rocket Launchpad is bringing the party to the Libertarian Party and launching ideas in your direction. Check us out at JohnnyRocketLaunchpad.com. You can hear me, Kurt Nelson, and the beautiful Heather Nixon talk about the ideas of liberty, rock and roll.
Hey there, Liberty lovers. This is Mark Claire of the Lions of Liberty podcast, where we strive to bring you great conversations about the ideas of liberty 3 days a week, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Check us out at lionsofliberty.com.
Hey guys, this is Roger Paxton, and if you're fed up with the government running every single aspect of your life, but you're not listening to the Lava Flow podcast yet, then what's wrong with you? Check us out at thelavaflow.com, or just go back to sucking up to the government. The Lava Flow podcast, striking the root every single episode.
Welcome into another edition of Central Indiana Today. I'm Rob Kendall. Thanks for joining us. Chris Spangle will be with us in just a little bit. But first, the real brains behind We Are Libertarians.
I don't know about that.
The great Greg Lenz. Greg, how are you?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you, Mr. Kendall?
I'm great. I'm glad you're back.
It's a pleasure to be back. I'm sort of the poor man's Jim Merritt, so I feel like I'm bringing it down to the level of the common man.
Well, I'm in for cats this week, so this show is suffering dramatically.
You have been up since, 3 a.m.?
Yes, I'm going to just let you talk for the whole show. Congratulations. You're the new host of Central Indiana Today.
Well, there are some memes I've been waiting to share with people. Nothing translates over to audio like memes.
Well, our audience is growing by the second, so for those who aren't aware, because it's been a little while since you've been on, what is We Are Libertarians?
We Are Libertarians is a website and podcast. We consider ourselves sort of a meet the press from a libertarian perspective, and we are all of the irreverence modern politics deserve. So we're offensive, we're informative, and we're anti-ISIS.
You're a heck of an American. All right, so let's talk about this, because I know you have a lot of opinions on the foreign policy of our country, on the actions of the president. How do you fight ISIS? What do you do?
That's an excellent question. And honestly, you take their oil. I mean, Donald Trump summed it up perfectly, is that you bomb the hell out of them, if I can say that.
Yeah, I think that's okay.
I don't think he's used that terminology, but then you take their oil. And ironically, that's the exact strategy that you do. If you cut off the oil, you cut off their funding, you cut off their ability to recruit, then you have to branch out and go after the other terrorist rogue organizations like the Al-Nusra Front and Tahrir al-Sham.
Okay, but like in London.
Oh, the rogue actors.
I mean, how do you stop that? I mean, what do you do?
What do you do to stop a rogue actor that is called to do so by a cleric?
Right. I mean, I've said this, and I've said this on the air the last couple days on WIBC, is it's now not a citizen militia, but now the citizens are now dependent upon themselves to see something, say something, keep saying something. Because a couple of these guys, it was just obvious they were terrorists.
Yeah, I mean, they are rogue actors. There's nothing you can do to prevent these types of things, in my opinion. I don't know if you saw today that at Notre Dame, the Notre Dame Cathedral, there was a guy with a shovel and knives, and the police took him out, and he said, "This is for Syria." So it was another one of these rogue actors trying to create a mass, or I guess you could say mass casualty event with a knife.
You hate political correctness. Part of what you guys do is you mock political correctness.
It's absurd.
Yeah.
So
Now, I can't imagine being your neighbor. I feel like that would be quite a task to be your neighbor. But if you were my neighbor and you saw me with a jihadist flag, like a lot of people saw one of these London terrorists wearing a draped jihadist flag, what would you do? What's your next step?
I would probably immediately put on my Make America Great Again hat, go get in my pickup truck and load the guns up and just drive around on citizen patrol. Now, that would probably instigate and provoke. But the reality is, there isn't a lot you can do unless there's an emphasis on assimilation. And the truth is, there has to be the president was right. There has to be a vetting process. The more of these events that happen in Europe, you're seeing the case where they have no desire to assimilate and they seek to impart their will upon the communities that they've immigrated to.
Now, does Trump inflame the situation by tweeting at the London mayor, maybe not accurately reflecting when the London mayor says no reason to panic? What he was trying to tell people essentially was, hey, we're going to see a bunch of police officers in these various areas, no reason to panic. And then, of course, the Trumpsters on Twitter. And then
next thing you know, there's an IQ challenge being leveled, which is so great.
Well, it is.
I felt so good when he did that.
We laugh about this, but is Trump helping the situation here?
I don't know. It's hard to say because this isn't something where ISIS is desperate. Like, the United States military and General Mattis have just done.
Love Mattis.
Oh, Mad Dog is he's a philosopher warrior. He is as insightful and brilliant as anyone in the entire military, and yet at the same time, if crossed, he keeps people up at night. Like he said, that is the man that keeps people up at night.
I feel like that's what you'd be if you were a general.
I don't know. He has incredible restraint to me because he studies. He's a Stoic, so he carries around Epictetus. Epictetus is a meditation, or then Marcus Aurelius' meditations, and so the guy's amazing to me. I'm so glad he's finally reached the pinnacle of his career and been given the waiver to join the Trump administration because for years his Mad Dog reputation prevented that.
Now, again, our guest Greg Lenz, We Are Libertarians. Big celebrity Chris Spangle will join us momentarily.
He's Hollywooding you right now. How do you feel about that?
Well, wasn't he mocking you for not being on time, about not being able to be here?
Well, that's the thing is, he is a person that... So we record out of his luxury apartment that is now basically a movie studio.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm going to ask.
It's like a casting couch when you walk in.
It's like the foam on the walls.
Sound, yeah, he's got sound absorption panels, blue lighting so we can do Facebook Live, dueling iPads to do Facebook Live. And it's all been requested by our listeners, shockingly, which, we definitely have radio faces.
It's amazing, the empire you guys have built. But now I ask this because you're very, you have a lot of Republican tendencies.
Well, I feel like I don't.
Spangle does not. He hates
Spangle's.
The Republicans.
Well, so I am. It's one of those things I can separate the theoretical and the practical. I can look at this situation and say where things stand right now due to the lack of trust, the lack of assimilation, and the reality of there are a group of people that are, pledged allegiance to the caliphate, the Islamic State, that think they can actually use eschatology and create the events to create the world end. So doing so, they think the world ends differently than the rest of society who isn't thinking about it. When that is what you face, you have to say, okay, sometimes one bad skittle can ruin things. I support open immigration and the free flow of ideas, but not to the extent where I'm going to say, you know what, even if one bad skittle gets through, I'm willing to be blown up just so I can live by my principles.
Yeah, and I'm curious how you guys interact on a personal level because Spangle is an idealist.
He is. He's very much an idealist, and he thinks that we should be committed to such things.
And I don't mean to pick on Spangle. We'll do that in a minute. But there are a lot of people out there that reflect that.
It's the opinion of the left.
Right. And they really believe that, and it's really difficult in society today. Because coming back full circle, like during the campaign, hey, Trump's tweeting Lindsey Graham's phone number. Trump says, I like people who weren't captured. You and we find that funny.
Yeah.
It's great. He's antagonizing Republicans who we believe need to be antagonized. But in terms of international diplomacy and
expected norms and decorum,
terrorism, is it really going to be challenging the London mayor to an IQ test?
Well, honestly, I think it is to an extent because the London mayor is the typical guy that is the darling of the international press. The international community loves this multicultural, stateless, highly educated individual that comes from a background they can't wait to show off and signal to everyone how enlightened they are that they support this individual. He's really a lot like a Barack Obama. However, he also is allowing entire communities to operate by Sharia law totally unchecked within the confines of the City of London. And to me, that is a complete disavowal of the responsibilities. And I can't help but think that if it were not Muslim little enclaves that were operating this way, if it were, let's say, the NRA, if it were the people of Northern Ireland decided to start their own enclave, he would march in with the National Guard. There is a constant accommodation made for for Islam. And there just is.
Okay, so let's talk about that real quick before we get to a break. There's this big controversy now about the billboard up off 465. calling out this person.
There are
or group.
statements of truth. Nothing is disputed from a factual perspective.
This is this group challenging truth. What's it called? Truth holes or
truth holds.
Truth phobes.
Truthophobes. Yeah.
Truthphobe. Yeah, they've got a controversial billboard off of 465.
They talk about his 11 wives.
Muhammad, the Prophet.
Prophet Muhammad.
Right.
His wives, the age of his wives, how he lived his life. Now, granted, these were all expected norms of the time he lived in, and so context is needed to give the proper perspective. However, there are some controversial things in his closet that they don't like it that they're being aired.
Well, because the Muslim community is very upset, and so I wonder, because while you are pointing out that from a factual perspective in terms of the Quran and writings of Muhammad, these appear to be the way it was, does this help the situation?
That's a good question. If the goal is to get to sort of...
Because one thing I learned in elected office, it took me about 3 years to learn it, but the best approach is, does this help me get to my end goal?
Yes. And so ultimately no, because you end up antagonizing the very people who you're hoping put an emphasis on assimilation in order to de-radicalize. Now, the reality is, though, even the best assimilation and the most coordinated effort between both sides, there's still going to be the rogue actor. The reason why is a lot of these individuals, they suffer. They're kept out of the economic system. They're not able to get jobs. What do? They have a lot of free time. They end up, it's the same thing, except it's more of a true believer commitment to a gang or something that gives their life purpose towards jihad.
All right, our guest, Greg Lenz of We Are Libertarians. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we think he'll be joined by Chris Spangle.
He's right now about to turn in.
Oh, he's in the parking lot right now. Perfect timing.
Not parking lot, but he said at the exit.
Oh, okay. And we all know, as libertarian, he does not obey society traffic.
Those are guidelines.
Those are just suggested rules of engagement.
Yes.
Yeah. We'll take a break. We'll be back. You're listening to Central Indiana Today. Welcome back to Central Indiana Today. I'm Rob Kendall. Thanks for joining us. You're here.
I am here. How are you, Rob?
It's great to have you back, Chris.
It's good. Have you already introduced everybody?
I have. Greg and I did a whole segment
All right,
about
good.
ISIS.
Good.
And you not obeying traffic signals and that being an optional thing in libertarian culture.
Of course. Why would I obey aggression?
So tell me, because we did the serious stuff before you got here. We talked about ISIS and how we defeat
We're going to
ISIS.
put a billboard up, though, of all of your resume like they did for the Prophet Muhammad. See how that goes.
Was that you, by the way? Did you put that up?
Oh, you know
Did
that's
you pay
me, right?
that?
You know that stamping out jihadism has been my lifelong quest. So tell me about your studio, because I've seen pictures of it. And I'm very excited about all you've done to your apartment.
Oh, yeah. Which, let me tell you, ladies of Indianapolis or the West Side, my entire apartment is basically a libertarian podcast studio.
It's like soundproofed.
Oh,
now?
I've got soundproofing. I've got curtains. I've got props. I've got bookcases with many leather-bound books.
You're like Ron Burgundy?
Many.
We have the Harvard Classic series, even.
Yeah, well, that was actually a gift from my grandma. It's probably the best gift I've ever been given was the Harvard Classics, the 5-foot bookshelf of an entire liberal arts education.
Are you allowed to do that to something you rent? Are you allowed to do this?
Well, I'm more of as a libertarian, I'm more of an ask for forgiveness later, not permission first kind of person.
Because, I mean, this seems like something that the landlord might be like, you know, if he's got to come in and fix a water heater or something,
the maintenance guy said, "This is pretty cool. What is this?" I was like, "Jackpot." I put foam core and then hung it with the command strip, so it's all safe.
You really dedicated. You can't move now, right?
I can't.
You're now stuck.
No, much to the chagrin of Harry Price, my IT person. He's very upset about the 18 megabits per second I get, and he was actually contemplating setting up a repeater, but getting a storage unit.
That's right.
And just so we could get better internet.
He is an absolute upload time elitist.
Now, people don't realize, because people hear, libertarian podcast, and as Greg and I talked about in the first segment, because it's been a while since you've been on, since you banned me from your podcast.
Well, we'll get to your apology later.
That people listen to this. This is not a joke. Like, this is a big thing.
No.
You have thousands of
we're gaining
thousands of people,
1,000 listeners a month since Election Day.
That's pretty amazing to think.
Yeah.
To think that 1,000 people.
Well, we don't advertise.
Yeah, you do nothing.
No,
just your general overwhelming positive demeanor.
Yeah, something
I
along
tend
those-
to troll some people on the internet occasionally.
yeah.
From time to time.
I tend to be a curmudgeon, as Rob can attest.
Yeah. So,
Fictional feuds help us quite a bit,
It's
actually.
not fiction. Shh.
So are you changing the landscape? Like, that's a lot of people that listen. Are you changing anyone's mind, or are you just speaking to people that are like-minded?
Oh no, we're gaining a lot of new people, and I think that we're starting to tread a new path in the libertarian movement. One that is much less, the Libertarian Party has always, and the libertarian movement as a whole, especially in the last decade, has been very right-focused and Ron Paul-focused and Austrian economics-focused. Greg is very into economics, but both of us are much more into geopolitics. We're much more into ending the deep state.
We know where Aleppo is.
Right. And we're very much against the war on drugs. So we're not on the left end of the spectrum by any stretch of the imagination. Greg posted a status the other day taunting the Libertarian Party for trying to reach out to the LGBT community.
Well, it seemed like pandering, and I can't stand pandering.
Right. And so we're trying to talk about issues that we care about, and a lot of people are responding to it. And we talk in a way that is we talk like you and I talk, just two guys hanging out at a bar talking to each other with a group of friends in a
like
in a
you just
humorous
had
way.
a pool party the other day.
We just had a pool party that lost us several Instagram followers saying, "What does this mean for?" Well, this doesn't do anything to help libertarianism.
Did we really?
But
Good.
I tend to think that us making fun of Brett Bittner with his super hot 20-year-old girlfriend on the Instagram in a bikini actually helps libertarians.
So is it like for me with Bruce Springsteen, like it's Born to Run through Born in the USA? I say, this is my guy. He's talking about guys struggling, working on cars.
Yeah.
I identify with that.
Yeah.
And then when he starts writing about having love and success, I say, I'm out because I want that.
Right.
Is that with you guys when your listeners see the pool party, they say, you shouldn't be having any fun. You should be
yeah.
a part of the struggle. You're like Vladimir Lenin.
Yeah, so what libertarian media has always focused on is professorial guys.
Right.
Self-flagellation.
Nerdy guys in bow ties talking to other nerdy guys who may or may not be on the autistic spectrum. And listen, we have plenty of those guys. We love those guys. But we think that there are a lot of women, a lot of frat bros, a lot of
I think the average
just
person
regular people
identifies with about 80% of libertarian ideas, as long as they're not taken to an extreme or absolutist position.
We just don't take ourselves seriously. We try to be National Review meets Mad Magazine, and that's not for everybody, and that's okay. But those people that it's not for, we don't like those people.
Yeah.
All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, I'm going to wrap up the show by asking Chris and Greg, how do libertarians start winning elections on a more consistent basis? You're listening to Central Indiana Today. You're listening to Central Indiana Today. Rob Kendall, along with the We Are Libertarians crew. Greg Lenz, Chris Spangle. It's so nice to have you guys back. It's so nice.
It's refreshing. I mean, you've probably had all kinds of boring interviews with like local cheerleaders. Now it's nice. Everybody's getting back into politics. It's nice to get back in the swing of things and come out here and.
I think everyone is politicked out, and our country needs a Xanax right now.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and if I look at it like the Beatles, like Greg is the one that everybody likes. It should be George. And then you and I are like the Paul and John.
I'm more John. I am very polarizing amongst even my own friends.
It's very nice to have you back, though. Okay, so the big question is moving forward, because pretty soon here we'll be back into the election season, as bad as that sounds. Several big elections next year in the state of Indiana, including the United States Senate. How do libertarians start at the Libertarian Party movement start winning or at least being competitive in elections? Because last year, like your U.S. Senate candidate, did pretty well, made a difference.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I mean, you're the one with the party expertise.
Because you're the former state director.
Yeah, I'm the former executive director of the party from 2008 to 2012.
Never better than when you were at the helm.
I couldn't agree more, to be honest with you. And the second I walked out of the door, it seemed like everybody forgot what we had done for 4 years. And I'm now back on the Central Committee because I want to be the institutional knowledge and try and get us back on path. And there's not to throw everybody under the bus. Over the last 5 years, there have been victories. There has been progress. I mean, the fact that we have one of the best central committees, one of the best guiding bodies and boards in our entire state party history over the last 40 years is testament to the amount of people in Indiana that the bench is growing in terms of people that are willing to step up and get involved. But I think the Libertarian Party has to stop playing a pro game with amateurs. I think that fundraising needs to be first and foremost in everyone's mind. That means laying out a viable policy strategy so people can take a look at that and will donate to that, having a political strategy that makes sense, and then hiring people who are professionals to execute. Instead of people taking their time and just sitting around, going, well, I do marketing for my full-time job. Let me spend 2 hours a week on the Libertarian Party of Indiana doing marketing. They need to hire consultants to do that, and that's something that I'm pushing for. And I think that there is it's a national and international prospect of hiring people for the right price.
The organized Libertarian Party, though, is against you guys on some level, right? They don't.
Local.
Yeah, they don't like you, right?
Well, it depends. It's the ones that are critical are the loudest.
There are pockets of staph infection in the party that don't like.
Weren't you booed at the state convention by someone, or wasn't that?
I was on a live stream for the party, an official outlet. One woman, who shall go unnamed, basically said that Brad Kloffenstein was a hell of a better director than I was. And she was in the vast minority of people. I'm well liked because a lot of the leadership that is involved right now, I recruited. Mm-hmm. A lot of the people who are involved, I recruited, and even a lot of the people who are new to the party and leadership are listeners to We Are Libertarians. They got involved because of the show. So they're sympathetic to us. Greg is a much more polarizing figure. Some people just can't let memes go.
Well, that, and I mean, the outgoing state party chairman just despises my existence.
Yeah.
Which just fuels me.
Right.
I enjoy it like Trump.
Yes.
The more you dislike me, the more happier I am, because I'm sort of like a pig. I'm going to get down in the mud. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
That's my natural habitat. But like for me with libertarianism, one is the courage to be a stark contrast. That's the biggest thing I notice. So much emphasis among our candidates when we finally do get access to the media is talking about how similar we are in comparison, or where the overlap exists, rather than a stark contrast with someone like Lucy Brenton, who ran for Senate.
Yeah.
The other is everyone is starting to kind of get an idea of what libertarianism is. They have the gist. They get it. The time is to say what we're for. Everyone understands what we're against.
Right.
Let's show them what we're for, and let's show them a plan that makes sense within the framework that exists.
Should I run for governor as the LP candidate in 2020? Should I do that?
I will be your campaign manager.
See, I'm thinking I could run against, I said this yesterday on WIBC, I could run as the single-class basketball candidate against Holcomb, and I feel like we could pick off some votes.
Yes.
We could be like the Bulworth of single-class basketball.
I feel like that's bad strategy because the Libertarian Party very much skews under 45, and most of us don't remember single-class basketball. And so the old-timers, like my grandparents and your grandparents, or maybe your dad, are not going to vote for a gosh darn libertarian pot-smoking candidate, even someone who is as exceptional and non-pot smoking as
even
yourself.
If I'm on the class basketball
we could allege that Eric Holcomb doesn't like the movie Hoosiers.
It's
listen. I saw it on TV. I was in the room with him while it was on. He walked out and asked, "What's that?"
I don't want to say this out loud, so I'm going to whisper it in the microphone. But I've heard he's never seen Rudy.
I don't know. I mean, there's
a smear campaign has already begun.
There's rumors he doesn't like Bobby Knight.
There you go. Hey, where can we find We Are Libertarians and all the We Are Libertarian stuff?
WeAreLibertarians.com for all your favorite We Are Libertarians needs. You can follow Greg and I there. You can get the podcast on any platform. Follow us. You'll love it.
Yeah, just give it time. We are long form.
Yes.
We're not easily digestible. You have to sit through a couple of hours of us, digest it, mentally unpacking discussions.
Yeah, and Rob has been on an astonishing 21 episodes of We Are Libertarians.
Yeah, did you know that?
I did. I saw that post.
That's huge.
Very excited.
You out-Bittnered.
I'm very...
Which is, thank God.
Very excited. All right. Hey, don't forget, if you missed any part of today's conversation, check out the podcast anytime you want. We're on SoundCloud and iTunes. Actually, a suggestion of We Are Libertarians. That's why we're there, because of the We Are Libertarians. So you got to get on that.
Got to get you right.
That's right. All you got to do is search Central Indiana Today, download the show right to your smartphone or tablet, go back and listen anytime you want. As always, the podcast presented by McDonald's. Till next time, I'm Rob Kendall saying have yourself a great evening.
We are supported by listeners like you. Donate per episode through Patreon or PayPal, or make a one-time donation at WeareLibertarians.com.
Welcome into another edition of Central Indiana Today. I'm Rob Kendall. Thanks for joining us on the program today. We are going to speak with Indiana's Secretary of State, Connie Lawson. She's been on the job since being appointed by Governor Mitch Daniels in 2012, was reelected in 2014, and has just announced she intends to seek re-election in 2018. And we sat down with Connie Lawson for her first wide-ranging interview since announcing she intends to seek re-election. Here's our conversation with Indiana's Secretary of State. You're also in charge of elections in the state. That's a huge deal. And you went through, what do they call that, record purging or voter rolls, right?
Voterless maintenance.
Yeah, explain what you did with that.
Well, when I walked in the office in 2012, I knew my first goal would be to make sure that our voter lists were clean and correct. It's important for a couple of reasons. First of all, we need to know exactly what our turnout is, but it's really important for counties as well, because counties determine their number of precincts, the number of machines that they send to each precinct according to the voters that we have listed on our rolls. And so if they're not clean and accurate, they're spending extra money when they don't need to. And so that was one of my first goals. So in 2013, I went to the General Assembly and we got the appropriation to do the first voter list maintenance that the state had done since 2006, statewide maintenance. Counties had the responsibility, but they couldn't always make it a priority. So we decided, the General Assembly actually supported us doing it statewide. So we did it in 14. We cleaned the list also in 16. So the way it worked is we mailed every active voter a postcard.
I got one.
Yeah, good.
Because I'm an active voter.
Yeah, and I'm glad you got that. And so, if your information was correct, you didn't need to do anything with it. But those that were returned to us as non-deliverable or non-deliverable or addressee unknown, we sent a second postcard that was forwardable so that it would give the voter the opportunity to correct their record. And so about 750,000 of those postcards came back the second time. So those records were marked as inactive. It didn't mean they were removed at that point in time. What happened was if they didn't show up to vote then in 14, in either primary general, the primary general of the municipal election, or the primary or general of 2016, then their record was removed. So this year, after the November election, our county clerk started that process, and 481,000 and some voters' records were removed because two postcards had been returned to us and because they had not voted in those 3 years.
How do you start? That sounds so daunting. Where do you even start to say we need to do this? What do we do? Who helps you with that?
Well, our Indiana Election Division helped us pick a vendor that would do the processing of the cards. But basically, it's the counties that do the work. I mean, they have to follow through. The state did the mailing because we have the data system for the statewide voter registration on a state level. We don't change any information. Counties work their own information, but they can see when a voter changes their registration from one county to the other, and so counties work together to keep that list as correct as they can. But unless you know that a voter may not be at that address, then you really can't move forward. It's the National Voter Registration Act or the NVRA Act that requires all states to do voter list maintenance. So we were doing it under the federal requirement.
Again, our guest, Indiana Secretary of State Connie Lawson. Fraud is something you deal a lot with. Fraud, we'll start on the election side. There was an issue with several counties that had issues related to fraud last year, or at least suspected fraud. How do you deal with those?
Well, if you're referring to the voter registration incomplete and incorrect registrations that were handed to several county clerks. That investigation actually, we were informed of that investigation by the Indiana State Police. And so they came to visit us mainly because they wanted to understand the law as it related to voter registration. And so we worked with them on that, but we were not a part of the investigation as such. It's my understanding they've completed that investigation and they've turned the information over to the Marion County prosecutor, and it's very possible there could be charges in the future. We have had, since I've been the Secretary of State, we've had a couple of convictions in our state. There was a conviction out of St. Joe County for petition signature forging. There was a conviction out of Jennings County for absentee ballot fraud. So we do the best that we can in our state to give people confidence. We have photo ID requirement. We keep our list clean. We scrub our list against other states' lists so that we can make sure that people don't vote in more than one state during the same election cycle. And so we do everything that we can to give voters the information they need and to have secure and accurate elections.
You're listening to Central Indiana Today. I'm Rob Kendall. Thanks for joining us. Our guest, a very special one, Indiana Secretary of State Connie Lawson. Of course, she was a long-time state senator representing Hendricks County before being appointed by Governor Mitch Daniels at the time to take over the office in 2012, was reelected in 2014, and has just announced she intends to seek reelection in 2018. Here's more of our conversation with Connie Lawson. We also have a really great law that says you got to show ID to vote. And our law has been upheld. Others have not. What's so great about our law that it's been upheld while others have struggled?
Well, Indiana is not one of the Section 65 states, so that was the significance. So when Indiana changes an election law, we do not have to have approval of the Department of Justice. When Indiana passed the law in 2005, it was challenged, and as you mentioned, it went all the way up to the United States Supreme Court. It was upheld. The court decided that we were not putting an undue burden on any voter to produce a photo ID when they came to vote. And so our law has been upheld. If there are any states who have had issues getting their laws to be enacted, it's because they were a Section 65 state. So years ago, they may have had some issue against, voter discrimination in some way, maybe against minorities. And so the Constitution requires the DOJ to approve that, Department of Justice to approve those laws, and the past administration wasn't amenable to doing that.
So we're really lucky then that our predecessors were okay, or pretty good at least, because it made it easier down the road.
We had a good election record here in the state of Indiana, so we were not a Section 65 state. So we were allowed to enact the election laws that we saw fit, and fortunately our law was upheld.
You just touched on something again, our guest, Indiana Secretary of State Connie Lawson, which has been in the news, that could the Russians have hacked the election, and maybe you could expand on that a little bit. It's basically impossible to hack our elections because Indiana is different from Illinois, who's different from Ohio, who's different from Michigan.
To affect the results on a national level would be virtually impossible. And it is, as I mentioned, it's the diversity of our administrations that really protects the elections. It's important for people to understand the election system. The first system is the campaign systems. So remember, it was the Democrat National Committee's campaign system that was hacked. So the parties, the Republicans on the national and the state level, and the Democrats keep those campaign systems separate from this. And then the states have the statewide voter registration system. We do election night reporting, but none of that. The statewide voter registration system is a data system, and there were two state systems on that level that were compromised. I started and had already been working with private security firms as well as public firms, public agencies to make sure that our elections here were not hacked, and they were not. We actually checked 15,500,000 logins to make sure, and those were the logins that our clerks had used from the beginning of the year till just past sometime in September. 15,500,000 logins we checked to make sure that our system had not been hacked, and it had not. So we feel good about that, but it's the diversity of the systems that keep it secure.
One thing that's going very well too, and I know it's more a county issue, but to speak to this a little bit, is early voting. It's making it possible for more people to get involved. It's making it easier for people to vote, and for the poll workers especially. It's really a great thing that people can vote, whenever they want.
Well, Indiana has a very generous early voting law. You can vote early 28 days before the primary and 28 days before the general election here, if you so choose. I've been an advocate for vote centers, so that a county that is a vote center county on election day, a voter can vote any place in the county that they, that's convenient for them. But yes, early voting is important. In Indiana, this past election, 2,807,626 people voted during the election cycle. 1/3 of them voted before Election Day.
So we had 2.8 million voters.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, it's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was a record number of Hoosiers who turned out. Our percentage was 58%, but I will tell you, after the clerks were able to process our voter list maintenance, when people didn't vote in November, so in December and January, the clerks started the process of the voter list maintenance that was begun in 2014. 481,000 voter records were removed. We would have had a 65% turnout. So, but we did have a record number.
What's Election Day like for you? Like, if I'm the Secretary of State, I'm building a fort under my bed, I'm hiding, and I'm saying, call me at 6 p.m. when the polls close. What's Election Day like for you? I'm sure you're much better at it than I would be.
Well, it varies. This year, we started out actually at the FBI post in northern, in Castleton, where we went to the FBI and watched them observe elections across our state online and talk to them about some of the things that they were doing. And then we went to Hamilton County and visited their offices there and talked to them and watched them send out absentee ballots to the polls and just, observe the election process there. Then we came down here and we went to Rook Securities, who actually was doing an amazing job. They had computer screens all over the room, and they were observing the election process in every county in our state. It was quite amazing. And then really we came back here and just took calls. I helped man calls, where do I go vote?
If I called the Secretary of State's office, you'd say, Secretary of State's office, this is Connie, how may I help you?
There are times when that happens. Obviously, I can't take all of those calls, but I do come down here. And then we just kind of make sure that after 6 o'clock that the results start coming in, and sometimes I end up staying in the office. Sometimes I go home and wait on that call. But Election Day can be a long day, and it's especially a long day for the folks in the Indiana Election Division because they will be in their office until the results stop coming in from the counties.
Join in on the conversation. Visit the sidebar at wearelibertarians.com and join our Facebook group, meet other listeners, and get our daily news dump.
First, had a chance to sit down with Indiana's Congressman Todd Rokita, who represents the 4th Congressional District, which includes us right here in Hendricks County. Of course, Congressman Rokita also considering a run for United States Senate. So I had a chance to talk with Congressman Rokita. Here's that conversation. Speaking of the United States Congressman Todd Rokita, Mr. Congressman, how are you doing today?
Hey, Rob. Great to be back with you.
All right, so let's talk about Washington, D.C. How crazy is it out there right now?
Crazy? Well, I think some elements are still crazy, but like I jokingly say to some folks who ask the same question, it's still a little crazy, but it's a good kind of crazy. And it's good because we're going in a different direction, only being held up by Democrats who refuse to acknowledge that their candidate lost. And they just refuse to acknowledge that Hillary Clinton won't be the president, so they keep trying to obstruct at every turn. Of course, that's disheartening, but I support our president. I support our great vice president, Mr. Pence, and I support our team. And we got a health care bill done. We got tax reform coming, and I'm ready to go.
Everything's Russia, Russia, Russia. Are you guys even paying attention to that from a lawmaker's side?
Well, it's a distraction, honestly. It's this idea that the Democrats won't admit that they lost. And, you remember, Rob, I used to be Indiana's chief election officer for 8 years and as Secretary of State. And I can tell you firsthand, Russia has not interfered with our elections, our election process. It's not like Russia was tied into the voting machines or anything like that. So the votes are the votes. And if there's if an investigation proves that Russia broke into someone's computer or stole emails, well, there's crimes that were committed, of course, and there are punishments for that. And those should be discovered and executed. But it doesn't mean they interfered with our elections. Really what they did is provide additional information. Got it in a clandestine way. But anyway, we have 2 committees working on this, and I think they should be allowed to continue their work and move on, and that should be the extent of the distraction from what it should be a rich agenda with health care reform, tax reform, infrastructure spending, that kind of thing. And That affects all my committees. I'll be front and center for not only the continuation of the healthcare debate, but also tax reform, as I'm vice chairman of the budget committee.
All right, let's talk about healthcare reform. Are you happy with the bill that came out of the House?
Well, you can always be happier, right? Legislation is sausage making for sure, because it's not your perfect plan. You have to have your goals and ideas ebb and flow and intermingle with others who think they have the best idea. That's simply the legislative process. But it's a good bill. Let me say that, and it deserves to be made into law, because just by doing that, you will have affected more entitlement reform, in this case Medicaid reform, than the program has ever seen. And that's important because that's what's driving our debt. There are basically three programs driving our $20 trillion debt right now, and that's Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security. And so, that reform alone is worth voting for this bill. I'm interested to hear that senators want to do a clean sheet design with it, and I wish them all the progress in the world and the best of luck. We ought to get this done sooner rather than later, so that we can get on a tax reform, because you can't do them both at the same time because of the reconciliation rules.
All right, let's talk about tax reform. And you mentioned you can't do it at the same time. Just high level, explain to our audience why that is.
Yeah. So I'm going to get down in the weeds here. So everyone, don't turn off the podcast or the station or anything like that. It'll be over soon enough. But reconciliation is the idea that you're going to reconcile your policies to budget targets. And so that's how you get, once we get a fiscal year 17 budget like we did, and we had a reconciliation bullet, if you will, to use for healthcare reform. And that's how we wrote the instructions, so that would affect healthcare policy changes to meet budget targets. That allows you to get around the 60 votes. Reconciliation allows you to get around the 60 votes in the Senate, so that you can actually get something to President Trump's desk. So in the case of healthcare, for example, some things in Obamacare, like the individual mandate, like the company mandate, they don't affect the federal budget. They're a mandate, and they're onerous, and it's an insidious law for sure, but because they don't move a budget number, you really can't put them in a reconciliation bill, or else the reconciliation bill would be ruled out of order, and then the whole idea would die. So when people complain about, well, you're not repealing all of Obamacare, well, we're getting most of it. We're getting everything that moves a federal budget number, and we'll get the rest later. But if you want to do all of it, you can't use reconciliation, and therefore you need 60 votes, which we don't have, to get to the president's desk. So we made the decision, Rob, to use reconciliation because we really wanted to get the heart of Obamacare out. We really wanted to reform Medicaid, do some other things that makes our healthcare system work better for people, lower premiums, better choices, bends cost curves down, those kinds of things. And we think we found a pretty good sweet spot in that. And then tax reform will be done with reconciliation too. But you can't have two reconciliation bills going at the same time. That's just the fact of the matter, because once we adopt a fiscal year 18 budget, then fiscal year 17 goes away by definition. And with that, any unfinished business like the health care bill, if it's not signed by the president by that time. So that's why it has to come one after the other.
All right, just a couple of minutes here left with Congressman Todd Rokita. Infrastructure is a huge issue. Indiana dealt with this in their legislative session this year. Where are we at with the transportation bill?
Well, President Trump, remember, on election night, came right out and said that he wants to spend $1 trillion on infrastructure. That's a huge number. And it also doesn't take into account the fact that we are in the middle, basically, of a 5-year infrastructure bill that I had a pretty solid hand in putting together. And that was the first time that we had a multi-year bill in 11 years. So local communities, state legislators can all plan now for 5 years their infrastructure projects, knowing exactly what they're going to get from the federal government. In Indiana's case, that's $1 billion a year for 5 years. So the federal government has done a lot already, long way to say. And now Mr. Trump wants to do more, and I'm happy to meet him to do more as long as it's paid for. It was very difficult to find 5 years worth of funding for this last one, and it's going to be even more difficult to find $1 trillion. Now, we may not have to find $1 trillion in the sense that business and public-private partnerships and other mechanisms may make up some of that $1 trillion. But I'm willing to work with this president. I'm willing to work with this vice president. I'm part of the team, and I want to get this country saved and back on the right track.
Education Secretary Betsy DeVos will be here Monday. You were a part of sweeping legislation, education reform, when Obama was president. Tell us about what you did and what you hope to accomplish now.
Well, we got a major piece of legislation done and got it signed even by Mr. Obama. The Wall Street Journal called it the most devolution, the biggest transfer of power from the federal government to the states that it had seen in 25 years. And now my friend Betsy DeVos, the Secretary of Education, is going to announce a plan Monday in Indianapolis that most likely will be the framework of a bill that I filed for the last 3 years that really improves the ability for low-income parents to send their kids to the school that they choose. Not using the public schools money, but using federal funds initiated from a tax credit that individuals and corporations would get for donating the scholarship. So it's a parent-driven model that really allows the parents, to choose what's best for their kids. And I believe that low-income parents can do just as good a job in doing that as other parents. And so I expect Ms. DeVos to outline in broad brushstrokes the administration's agreement with those principles, and I think that'll give my legislation a big boost.
All right, I want to close with this. I'm getting lots of emails from you. You've got a fundraising team. You're all over the place. Do you want to break any news on this Friday for us?
I'll tell you, you'll be one of the first to know, if not the first, Rob, but no exclusives today. Your listeners know that Joe Donnelly really doesn't have or employ the Hoosier values in terms of his votes that he claims he has. Joe Donnelly's always with us. He's always with us, Hoosiers, whenever it doesn't matter. But when it matters, when it's Obamacare, he's right there with Mr. Obama and voting for it. When it's giving $150 billion to the Iranian government so that they can turn around and give it to Hezbollah and ISIS to hurt our friends in the Middle East and then hurt us, Joe Donnelly's right there with Iran. When it's adding regulations to our Second Amendment and to our gun rights, at the request of Mr. Obama, Joe Donnelly's not with Hoosiers. He's with Mr. Obama again, and Schumer and Pelosi, and you name the issue, Rob. And it has to stop. And so I'm seriously considering throwing my hat in the ring as a former two-time statewide office holder with strong name ID, good grassroots network, good reputation around the state, to make sure Joe Donnelly is stopped.
Well, Mr. Congressman, I know you're busy. Thanks for your time today. Keep up the great work. We love you here in Hendricks County.
I love you guys. Be back like I am every weekend. See you soon.
Thank you for listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Get our other shows at WeareLibertarians.com.